Good morning. I'm Daniel Crane, and I am a worship associate here at Horizon. And our presenter today is Cameron Young. They is a, oh shoot. They drove all the way from Fort Worth. They are a member.
Southern Region staff.
They are from the Southern Region staff of the UU Association. So we're very excited to have them with us here today. And we are excited to welcome you to our worship service this morning. We're so glad to have you with us here today, whether you're joining us in person or virtually, whether you're here for the first time or whether you've been here for longer than you care to remember. Here at Horizon, we welcome people of all faiths and of no faith in particular. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome among us. Before we begin the worship, we have a few announcements. I encourage you to read the inserts and announcements in your bulletin, but I wanted to point some out particularly. I wanted to remind people of the Horizon Chili Cook-Off fundraiser, Saturday, October 22nd, from 5 to 7 p.m. Sign-ups are along the wall in the lobby, and Elizabeth will have, the sign-ups are if you'd like to bring chili to enter in the contest, and Elizabeth will be selling tickets in the fellowship hall after service. Also, the day following that, on Sunday, October the 23rd, we're having the Trunk or Treat event, which is a Halloween celebration, and people are encouraged to bring their cars, decorate your trunk, and hand out candy on that day. Also, in your bulletin, wanted to remind you of the Horizon Safety and Preparedness Task Force, led by Rex Redding. There'll be a light lunch available in the fellowship hall. Sign-ups for that are in Sign Up Genius, or you can contact Marty Keller. And there's a sign-up sheet also in the lobby for that. This time, I'd like to give it to Cameron.
Good morning. It's so good to be here today. So for those gathered here physically, to those tuning in digitally, for those people of our past and present who have shaped us, and for those yet to come, for the spirits of the great beyond. Let us rejoice in the holy communion we call life and worship together. So our chalice lighting. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows and gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
And now rise as you are able, in body or spirit, as we say our affirmation, which is located in your order of service and projected on the screen behind me here. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together. Now, if you'll please remain standing as you are willing or able for our opening hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, number 188 in your gray hymnal. And the words will be projected behind me.
This hymn is sung as a round, so we will have the room in three parts. Kristen here will guide from the center aisle that way. I will guide from the center aisle this way, and then our choir will be our third part. We will sing the whole thing once through all together in unison, and then we will break out into a round and sing it twice through as a round. Okay. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Daniel, and I am your Director of Lifespan Religious Education. Before we have our Time for All Ages, I wanted to remind everyone that one way we make a difference in the wider community is by contributing to MetroCrest services. At this time, if you've brought donations for MetroCrest, I invite you to pass them to the end of the aisles, and a young person will grab them as they come up. And we ask for basic supplies for MetroCrest, like shelf-stable food items, personal care products, and monthly hygiene needs. So at this time, I'd like to invite the young and the young at heart up front for a Time for All Ages. Well, hello, it's so good to see everybody here today. I am going to ask for a couple of volunteers, and when I give you something, I'm going to ask you to hold it above your head so that maybe the people in the seats can see it. So the first thing I need is I need somebody to bend this thing over here. Oh, hang on. Okay, here, give it a try, and then hand it back to me. All right, that person has it in their hands. Oh. Very nice. Can you hand it back to me and I'll show it to everyone at home? And okay, take a look. Would you say that bent pretty easily? Yeah, it sure did. Oh, so we have another volunteer here. Oh, you'll try the next one. Thank you so much. Here you go. Give this one a try. All right, we've got a little bend going on. And it went right back to its shape. All right, so tell me about this. It's hard to bend, but were you able to bend it a little bit? Yeah, let's not break it. Thank you so much, because it might hurt somebody. All right, so, okay, my goodness. Oh, I have more volunteers to try this one. All right, here's somebody I don't know. Here you go. Try to bend this thing. So we had something that bent really easily, something that sort of bent but went back to its shape. Okay, just to describe what's going on, there's somebody that's holding it between two hands, like they're grimacing, and their hands are shaking, now two people are trying to bend it. I think we should stop. Okay. Oh, now they're going to use a lever. Okay, all right. We're applying physics. That's good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this thing is pretty much, you couldn't break this. So why? So this is not like a test of strength or anything. Let me just grab my things here before I forget. The reason I asked you to do this is it's something that's called what's within our control. There's a different layers of things that are in our control, like this. Like, would you say that this was really easy to bend and everything, and you could control the shape you wanted it in? What do you think? Oh, just one person at a time, please. Okay, my volunteer said that she thought she could make lots of shapes out of this, that she had lots of control, for sure. All right, now is your time. How about this thing over here? Did you have a lot of... Oh, yes, well, yeah, but that's not fair, because that's not the thing I gave you. How about this thing over here? No, you don't need to get it again, but did you have a lot of control over the shape it took? Not really. I mean, I can tell you bent it a little bit because it's kind of drooping down a bit, but yeah. And then my last two people. What do you think? Did you have any control over? No, there was no control. Okay, maybe a millimeter, yes. So I'm telling you all this for a reason. And if the AV booth hasn't put my graphic up, I'd like them to put my graphic up. They did, but it's a little hard to see. So everybody has things they control. And if you're sitting up front, the things that you can control are the closest to the stick figure. Can anybody read those for people that can't read it? It's a little hard to see. Can you read some of them? Yeah, your words. What else? What do you see?
I see actual impact.
Say that again. Oh, actual impact. I see. So can you read one of the words that are the actual impact you can have? No, it's okay. Go ahead. Your mood. Okay. Anything else? I can tell you other things. Oh, go ahead. Oh, your tone, that's a good one. And so those are all the ones that are like this. You have lots and lots of control over them. How about, can you all read, or maybe I have to ask somebody in the audience to read these. These, where they're kind of flexible, but not really. You can have some influence on it, but just a little bit. Can you read any of those in the second circle? Can you? Your relationships, yeah, you can affect some relationships. Yes, go ahead. Voting. That's a real big one here. Oh, look, an adult is helping. Thank you so much, adult. Yes. Oh, your family. Yeah, like you can choose you're going to be in a relationship with a family. How about the outer circle? Those represent this thing, the thing that you can't bend. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, the weather. Okay, good. Go ahead. Say that again. Solar flares, yes. Any natural disaster, yes, we don't really have any control over that. Go ahead. The economy. Well, I'm calling on people who have their hands up, yes? Oh, the threat of nuclear war. Yeah, there's so much. You can put your hands down now. Yeah, there's so much that's out of our control. And so I hope that you see that some things are bendy, that are in our control, and some things are just totally out of our control, like that one pipe that we couldn't bend. And the reason I'm telling you all this is that if we focus on the things, like focus our energy, our mental energy, our thoughts, on the things that are closest to us, do you know what happens? We actually have more influence in the other circles. I know it seems funny that things you're concentrating on close to you affect things that are far out from you, but it's true. And I'm going to leave you with this quote. This is a paraphrase from Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world by focusing on what's right in front of you. So thank you so much for your good listening and your good volunteering, excellent answers. We're going to go ahead to class, and I'm going to ask the people in the seats to sing us out to class now. Thank you so much.
this congregation are the church. And it is only by our contributions that the church is able to do the work which we all participate to make this world a better place. We will collect the offering to support the work of this church and our communities in this world.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body,
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
Our first reading for this morning from A Promised Land by former President Barack Obama. The truth is, I've never been a big believer in destiny. I worry that it encourages resignation and the down and out complacency among the powerful. I suspect that God's plan, whatever it is, works on a scale too large to admit our moral tribulations, that in a single lifetime, accidents and happenstance determine more than we care to admit, and that the best we can do is try to align ourselves with what we feel is right and construct some meaning out of our confusion, and with grace and nerve play at each moment the hand that we're dealt.
We now take the time to honor the sorrows and joys of this community. No one has left any requests for sorrows and joys. You're reminded that you can at any time write them down and put them in the bowl, and light a candle if you want to in the remembrance of those sorrows and joys. We do this knowing that we are all interconnected and that what affects one affects us all. There is the sorrow, or our thoughts should be turned to those who have been adversely affected by the Hurricane Ian. They are still having needs that haven't yet been met, so keep them in your thoughts. And also our collective sorrow increases every day as we watch the unimaginable horrors that the people of the Ukraine are experiencing. We light a candle this morning to honor all the sorrows and joys which have gone unspoken and reside in our heart.
If you will, assume a comfortable posture of prayer or meditation. If you are comfortable, feel free to close your eyes. Take a deep breath, then another, and another. Holy One of old, God of many names and mystery beyond all our naming. We celebrate the joys and mourn the sorrows of too great to imagine all around the world. The joy of new life, the sorrows of loss of life. We celebrate simply our being here and being present at this hour. We recognize the sorrows of those suffering from violence and exploitation around the world. Ukraine, Yemen, and elsewhere. We also hold in our hearts, as was said, those adversely feeling the impact of Hurricane Ian. And know that includes our Unitarian Universalist siblings, particularly the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Fort Myers, Florida, who suffered some pretty extensive damage to their building. May we all breathe with them and breathe with those who are celebrating their joy. We do this in the name of those present and absent, remembered and forgotten, and in the name of all helpers of humankind. Amen.
Our second reading today is an excerpt from The Irony of Human History by Reynold Niebuhr. The final wisdom of life requires not the annulment of incongruity, but the achievement of serenity within and above it. Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetimes. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we must be saved by love. No virtuous act is virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as it is from our own standpoint. Therefore, we must be saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness.
Thank you for having me in the pulpit today. As was mentioned, I serve on the southern region of congregational life staff for our Unitarian Universalist Association. So our job is to coach, companion, connect, and sometimes challenge our congregations to become the best versions of themselves. So the UUA is comprised of regions, and while I live locally here in DFW, I serve the entire southern region, which encompasses congregations from here in Texas, east to Florida, up to Virginia, and all the way down to Mexico. So I was more or less raised as a Unitarian Universalist, and my first time in a UU church was as an infant right here in Horizons Nursery. So back when both of my parents lived in Carrollton, and my mom, who was already UU, was looking for a church community to raise me in. We moved around a lot, so we weren't dedicated churchgoers. However, so it wasn't until I was a teenager that I became really active in the church through YRUU, or Young Religious Unitarian Universalists. Another church I was raised in, though, was Alcoholics Anonymous. So I come from an alcoholic family system where my parents were in different phases of recovery throughout most of my life. But I always had at least one parent in AA. And I mean it when I refer to it as a church of my upbringing. I would attend the open meetings, and during the closed ones, I'd play with other kids in the hallways or out in the parking lot. Some of my best friends from childhood, many of whom I'm still close with, were fellow AA babies. I'd attend Al-Anon and Alateen. I went to the dances and social events. My first LGBTQ plus role models were members of AA. It was quintessentially a multi-generational and multi-spiritual community, if that sounds familiar. So a term thrown around a lot in seminary is embedded theology. It refers to the implicit beliefs, messages, and assumptions we receive from our faith of origin, or lack thereof. An example of embedded theology might be something as simple as Jesus loves me, yes I know, for the Bible tells me so. You sing it before you really understand what it entails. I might even have more embedded theology from AA than I do from Unitarian Universalism, though I do see some overlap. Both AA and UU are Christian in their origins. Yes, Christian, even though some UUs are not ready to admit that. But they're also explicitly open to varying faiths and belief systems. Now, I'm not sure I would go as far to say that AA is in and of itself a religion, though that's an interesting conversation to have. But it's structured in many ways like a church, and it does have a theology. I believe its theology resides in its 12 steps and 12 traditions, as UUs have 7 principles and 6 sources. The 12 steps are a path that outline for sobriety and spiritual wholeness, including an admission of powerlessness, surrender to a higher power, and fearless personal inventory. The 12 traditions are essentially AA's group covenant, which as UUs we know because we are a covenantal faith. The 12 traditions feature language like our common welfare should come first, and we hold anonymity to be the highest degree. But like with any embedded theology, we eventually reach a point developmentally where we begin to deconstruct, take things apart, piece them back together. I'll now look at a lot of AA theology with a critical lens. For example, most of AA language refers to God as He, Him, and Father, though some more progressive groups kind of veer away from that. I, for one, don't really use androcentric language for the divine. Though I can understand it in context and see its usefulness for some folks, I believe the Father-God metaphor is both originating from and enabling the patriarchy and misogyny that we see in many religious institutions. A lot of AA's language also talks about defects of character, which also doesn't sit right with the Universalist in me. Though we fall short, I certainly believe we are whole, holy, and good, just the way we are created. Do we make mistakes? Yeah. But I think that language arises directly from a doctrine of original sin, something we pretty much wholeheartedly reject. But the beauty of being a UU is that critical thinking is encouraged, and we are blessed with theological translators, and we don't always have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Anyways, 12-step programs usually say take what you like and leave the rest. So I did. Though I've naturally deconstructed some pieces of 12-step, just as I have with Unitarian Universalism, I still carry so many valuable tools with me to this day. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I was a kid the first time I heard the Serenity Prayer. The prayer is part of my embedded theology, something which I didn't readily understand when first uttering it, but nevertheless, something I spoke and internalized. It's chanted communally, in unison, at the beginning of many 12-step meetings. It's a centering prayer, especially intended to help folks who may be in the midst of emotional turmoil to reach a point of surrender to a higher power, whatever that is, and hopefully some peace amidst life's chaos. I often heard it in the context of Al-Anon, a program designed for family members of alcoholics. Something often observed in children of alcoholics and addicts is that they often become addicted themselves, or they become the helpers and the fixers and savers, sometimes both. I was in a room full of ministers one day, and somebody posed the question, how many of us come from alcoholic family systems? And I swear everybody at the table raised their hand. Turns out, though, helping and fixing and saving is usually not always a good thing, especially when it comes to dealing with dysfunction. Much of the time, it's enabling, dependency forming, and damaging to your well-being because you can't let go of your need to control. Think the parents who offer free lodging to their adult child struggling with addiction, but allow them to continue using and don't set needed boundaries to help move their life forward. Or the romantic partner who continues to take their significant other back despite countless broken promises of quitting. In my work, I even see this play out on a macro level. Ministers who work 70-hour weeks to keep their congregations afloat, or so they think. Another valuable mantra offered in 12-step is, you didn't cause it, you can't control it, you can't cure it. As someone who spent most of their childhood internalizing the opposite of those messages, this, in conjunction with the Serenity Prayer, was extraordinarily helpful. So what might a Unitarian Universalist understanding of the Serenity Prayer entail? A vital question that could use some serious unpacking. At first glance, it may look more like a Calvin and Hobbes comic, where Calvin says he prays for the strength to change what I can, the inability to accept what I can't, and the incapacity to know the difference. Or perhaps if you're a Seinfeld fan, it may look more like Frank Costanza saying, "Serenity now!" Our tradition is a rich and beautiful one, with a clear theological imperative to be co-creators of justice and change in the world. But I also believe our people often have this misguided illusion that we have more power than we actually do. I think we also have tendencies to fundamentally misunderstand what helping actually is. It's also important we examine the origins of the Serenity Prayer, which predates the existence of 12-step. Though there is a little debate over this, the prayer is widely attributed to Dr. Reinhold Niebuhr, a theologian. The earliest version of the prayer dates back to 1937, and it reads a little differently. Father, give us the courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. Note the change in placement here. Niebuhr begins with asking for courage to change what must be changed, unlike the contemporary version. This fits with Niebuhr's personhood. In the early 30s, in the wake of the Depression, Niebuhr was actually a militant socialist, though he changed his own ideology later. This prayer is clearly anything but a rationalization for inaction. Niebuhr's other priority was that of realism in relation to humans' capacity for evil. He was witnessing white supremacist violence at his home in Detroit. A German-American son of immigrants, he was watching the rise of Nazism in his ancestral land. He was cautioning fellow progressives against what he saw as some naive sentiments about human beings and systems. Contrary to many of his contemporaries who were quite pacifistic, he was a proponent of American entry into World War II. Hence the placement of courage to change what must be altered. Serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. In The Irony of American History, which we heard from earlier, Niebuhr writes, "There is no nice line between a normal expression of human creativity and either the sloth which refuses to assume the responsibilities of human freedom or the pride which overestimates man's individual or collective power." A rhetorically embellished articulation of the dilemma which underlies the sentiments of the prayer itself. He goes on to write, the problems of American idealism are A, that American power in the present world situation is inordinately great, and B, the contemporary international situation offers no clear road to the achievement of either victory or peace over tyranny. What do we do when there is no clear road? And this was in 1952. The Cold War and Korean War were happening, but it's well before Vietnam and before America's continued habit of making the world safe for democracy. He foresaw the wars to come in Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan that would not only be ineffective, but make things severely worse out of desire to help. Finally, one of the most poignant lines here is a too confident sense of justice often leads to injustice. Or as we hear from Star Wars, only a Sith speaks in absolutes. So let's fast forward to today. We saw years of demonstrations against police brutality bring about a shift, not always to justice, but to accountability with the George Floyd verdict. Racist police brutality remains an epidemic, but nevertheless, this shift towards accountability and structural change has been noticeable. In large part, because of demonstrations of thousands of people, of which UU's played a small but not insignificant part. Courage to change the things we can. Climate change. We know no amount of reductions of our own individual carbon footprints will drastically curtail it. The fight is really in the legislature, but even then, the only realistic shot at halting climate change is overhauling our global economic systems in ways that might not be politically feasible. Even the Paris Climate Accord is a compromise, and the US hasn't really kept its end of that bargain. Now, I'm not saying all of our efforts are in vain, but I am saying that perhaps maybe this conversation needs to shift to accepting its inevitability and finding ways to become individually and collectively resilient in the face of it. The easiest thing to change is within. Personally, but also as the small but mighty faith we are, discussions we've been having as UUs over the past 4 years or so are how we can change from within so that marginalized peoples feel more at home in our spaces, which frankly they haven't. So as many times as I've heard something to the effect of, why are we so focused on ourselves when the real injustices are out there? It's a false dichotomy. And then one must find that often elusive semblance of personal serenity in the midst of all that. Peace. Not a peace that is simply the absence of conflict or discomfort, but a peace that constitutes wholeness. My Zen teacher and spiritual counselor always tells me that when you sit, the whole world sits. Transformation within enables transformation on the outside. As many of us have learned with trying to help alcoholic loved ones, when you've not first found that sense of inner balance, you might not actually be helping. You may be merely putting Band-Aids on flesh wounds. And that inner balance often comes from first feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders so heavily you are literally brought to your knees, sobbing into the palm of your hands. Listening close enough in those moments, though, you may hear a voice of something beyond just your small, mortal self telling you to let go. It's okay. and then finding the wherewithal in yourself to relinquish control, that is where awakening begins. Holy One, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. May it be so. Please rise and body your spirits and sing our closing hymn, number 1020, in your teal hymnal, Wo Ya Ya.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know again, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And now we extinguish this flame, but not our commitment to Horizon's mission, which is to love radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. And we do this because we envision a beloved community filled with passion and helping to strive in our world.
This benediction from Reverend Samuel Trumbore, a UUA board member. Every week we gather in this beautiful space to find peace. Each week words and music offer and celebrate peace with the hope of instilling us. Now take the peace you have found here back out into the world with you. Renewed in our faith and inspired to act, let us be peacemakers the world aches for. And by being peacemakers, let us find the peace we long for. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace.